All right. Good evening, everyone. This is Rick Morgan, your comic book scientist, with Mark and Jack. Jack, why don't you guys introduce yourselves one at a time? Start with Mark.
Mark Muehleisen, and I have just had the pleasure of getting a chance to get to know Rick better. And I'm a odd collector where I didn't collect up until probably about 10 years ago, other than being as a kid. And I bought a collection of 75,000 issues from a comic shop that was going out of business, and that has launched me back into this world with a like a rocket ship. So
What does 75,000 issues look like? I have an idea because I've seen
it
a
was
lot of.
it was it was well over 200 long boxes.
Wow.
And it was I wish I'd known in advance. I would have had a couple of pictures ready. I show you what the storage unit looked like. I had them drop the truck off. The truck dropped off at a storage unit, and I had bought let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. I think I had 4 or 5 of those Wayland racks from Costco, those big, heavy industrial ones.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And there were 8 to a rack, and there were 4 rows. And then I had them also stacked in pallets, but it was, and they were, I stacked on top of each other. So, I mean, I had, it was crazy. And then at one point I said, enough is enough with the storage unit. And I brought them home and put them in the garage in the basement. And my garage was completely filled with racks of books.
Oh, that's a lot. That's a lot to ask of your family and your.
It was just me. So I was.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
I didn't have to worry about anybody else.
That's good.
And then the first 22,000 I went through, I told you I took them to Mile High and I sold them to Chuck. And that kind of, it was a cool thing. I got credit, so I was able to buy a lot of books that I wanted and got some cash out of it. But I realized too that, his opportunity should have been mine, because I came home with seller's remorse rather, and I just said, I'm going to figure this out. And I started setting up my eBay, account, figuring out how to advertise correctly, and figured out how to grade, and figured I literally take sheets of cardboard and I score and fold my own mailers. So I don't buy mailers. I custom cut them for every order. And and it's quick and easy. I mean, I can do it in just like a couple of minutes. And because I made sure I bought a lot of books on eBay, and they always came in damaged. They always came in poorly packed. And I swore I would never have anybody complain about a damaged book. My promise was, you'll get it in the exact same condition as what I'm shipping to you and what I've told you it is. And I was a hard grader, so they were almost always getting a better book than what they thought they were.
That's cool. That's good. Yeah. So Jack, tell us about yourself and how long you've been collecting comic books, and how many do you have?
Yeah, for sure. Really quick though, Mark, because I missed the very beginning. What was the feeling of buying that many comics? I mean, that's crazy.
It was like an, oh no, what have I done? And I was excited, right? But I thought, I thought, a way to flip these fast, and it just didn't. I mean, it became, every box was Christmas, and I would go through every, I'd set out, I created a system where I'd put it on I have a big kitchen table, big square kitchen table, and I just rows, and I'd have them alphabetical. And then I would just sort them that way. And then I started creating dividers and putting together. And I mean, it was overwhelming. So it was fun, but at the same time, I was trying to do like a box a night, and then it became like a box a week. And I'm like, I got 200 boxes here.
Wow.
Then, so
that's overwhelming.
It took me a couple of years to go through them all, but I touched every one of those books.
Wow. Still, that's
and the majority of them were inventoried. Like I used Comic Face, which I like that software. And I bought a barcode scanner, and I could just zap them in, but then I still had to put a grade in there, and I still had to put a quantity in there, and I'd get more than one of one issue. And I mean, I had, I don't know, 400 or 500 titles that I was having to go back. One box, I'd have a title that I had discovered, 3 weeks ago. I had to go back and find it and get it in there. And I mean, so I was building the titles, categorically as I went. So it took a while to sort, but the software helped. So
yeah. No, for sure.
It was
Well,
fun.
thanks.
It was a lot of
Yeah,
fun.
thanks for. I was just curious. Thanks for touching on it again. So, so I think I've talked to you. Well, I think I talked to you previously about Rick, but yeah. So I've been collecting since. Well, I'm sure I was 6th or 7th grade, early on when I was in school. So I think the majority when I was younger, I was like between 6th grade and some of high school,
Yep.
and then I dropped off for a bit. Part of it was, when I was here, I was collecting, but then when my mom remarried, my father was in the military. So after my freshman year of of junior high, we were shipped to Germany. So I lived there and graduated there in Germany, and I was still buying comic books for a bit off the base from PX and stuff, which is come to find out lately. I hadn't really thought about it. As I have I'll go through every once in a while, flip through my comics, and boom, I got a bunch of Mark Jewelers in a lot of these books that I bought there. I just at the time it was like not a big deal at that time, as it kind of is now. But then I dropped off. You start going through life and everything. I picked it up a little bit, maybe late 90s or so. I would just order off of online and go to some local comic book places. But then kind of dropped it again. I always had a love for art, so that's what drew me to comics, just the visual art itself and the artists. And then really on and off a lot until it was probably after, well, not after, but probably 2021. I went to the Comic-Con up here, and I've always went to the Emerald City Comic-Con, and I just started picking up comic books again, and then I just dove all the way headfirst into comics since that time, and I mean my collection has grown, I don't know, 3-4 times as much since that point in time. Obviously, being an adult and working and having more money helps to facilitate the purchasing of these types of comics versus when you're at school. So I've collected quite a bit, and really now I guess I'm calling it a journey. I guess I'm trying to back off a lot of the newer issues. I mean, I still read Spider-Man. I read Hulk. I still read certain titles, but now I'm really Silver Bronze Age stuff. I go because that's kind of where I was. And that's where the stories are for me and the artists. So I'm really more back issues that I'm looking for now than I am with the newer type issues.
Plus, it's fun to see the old Hubba Bubba ads and stuff, and for the Army and stuff.
Yeah.
That's great. I noticed actually recently, like there's a Madam Web. Like everybody says, Amazing Spider-Man 210 is the first appearance of Madam Web, and there's a stupid movie. I mean, there's a movie coming out soon, and that doesn't look great, but it's there's something. But I found in a Captain Marvel, or a Miss Marvel from like 4 years earlier, 1977. There is a Madam Web that looks not exactly the same, but she's different. She's like a mystic though. So, but she's throwing out those Hostess Twinkie pies. The ones that used to stop a crime by throwing Twinkies at the bad guys and all stop and eat it. And it says like Madam Web, and it looks a little bit like her. And I'm like, hold on, is this really the first appearance of Madam Web? Is she actually throwing ding dongs at bank robbers?
That is funny, right? Because I think I've seen, because I started digging through. I started picking up older Captain Marvel issues, and I think I saw the ad you're talking about because I chuckled when I saw it.
Clever marketing all the way back then, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Well, they don't really have the same kind of ads. Not a lot of the ads are for video games and for movies or for other comic books and stuff, but they don't have that. You don't get that full page of the X-ray specs and the
exactly.
I wanted all of that so bad, and I believed all of it was absolutely real.
I know the X-ray specs. It was like, what? How does that work? How is it only 99 cents? I don't get it, because X-rays seem like they should be more expensive than that. I just didn't. My brain didn't digest it. But I remember like sending off for some of that stuff and just like running out, checking the mailbox pretty frequently and just never getting anything. Like the money was just gone. I don't know what happened to it.
This is reminding me so I did have some comics moving overseas. So Jack, I was in Korea for 2 years when I was a kid. My father was Air Force, so
okay,
we almost ended up in Germany, but we ended up in Korea instead. But in one of the comics, there were the plans for a robot, and I think I somehow convinced my parents to get that, and my dad built that for me. And I could get in this thing and walk in. It was a massive robot made out of cardboard and wood, and it was cool. I wish I could figure out which book that was, and it would have been 1977, 78, I think, is when I would have found that. So I'm going to see if I can find it now that I think about that. It's fun. Yeah. Anyway.
That's pretty cool, man. Yeah, I didn't get anything. I got robbed. I did order those 200 army men or whatever, like the Roman ones. I wanted the Roman guys.
And like the back page.
Yeah, totally. I did send out for that. And it says a chest. It says a chest with 200 guys. And I'm like, well, you know what? These Roman guys kind of reminded me in some way of stormtroopers because they had this helmet with like this thing down the middle. And I'm like, these can be auxiliary stormtroopers or something from like my Star Wars guys. But I got it. It was a little cardboard box about this big. That was the chest. You open it up and these guys were flat, like the thinnest plastic you can imagine with a little plate on the bottom of it. They were like the silhouette, like a flat, like a 2D guy.
No.
And they were awful. And they were just jammed in there and it was folded up with, and the chest was a little cardboard box. I'm like, thievery. This is like, I was introduced to the world of misrepresentation at that time.
That's funny.
It's like, what? How could that be? Yeah. So Mark, you said you had some books you'd been working on recently.
Yeah,
are you ready to share with us anything?
I think I don't know if I mentioned it to you in the email, but I have 5 Iron Man Submariners. I don't think I'm going to experiment on those. They belong to a friend of mine. He's asked me to press them and send them in for him, and I think I might hold off. I did use one that was had a lot of wrinkles and color breaks that I couldn't do much with, and I put that into the light box, and the white came out beautiful.
Oh, great!
But I did lose a lot of color across the board. It wasn't just the reds and yellows; it was also the blues and others. And I put a couple of other ones side by side, and I could see the fading. Now, if you just looked at it by itself, it looked great. But if you put it next to a different one, I have no idea what CGC is going to do about that. If they're going to make any comments or
nothing. They don't. You should see. Like, there's so many. I have a book over here. Let me see if I can show you one that I have. It's the Spider-Man with that. I took it in the box. Let me get it out over here really quickly.
So they care more. They care more about the white than they do about any faded color.
I think so. They don't really have an idea of the brightness of comic books. Let me see if I can find it here somewhere. I don't remember where I put it. I'll be right back in a second. Where did I put that?
Yeah, I want to see it.
It's that
Yeah,
one.
did you see much?
It wasn't that one. I have a couple here. I wanted to show you some things, but it was that one that has like Cry of the Wendigo, that sort of orangish Spider-Man book. That's it was like 280 something.
How interesting that they don't find that to be as a level of importance as much. Interesting.
No, yeah, they definitely. Oh, here we go. Here's something that's fun. So check this out. So this is the book. Now I want you to look at this orange down here versus this orange at the top.
Mm-hmm.
So what I did was I exposed this to sunlight and daylight for a long time. But what I did was I put a board across this area in the bottom, like one of my UV slab mats, my UV protective boards. And I left this top third to be exposed to just natural light over a long time. And I have over here, I have the case for this book. Oh, that's not, I thought it was this. It's not this one, but it's similar to this one. And it was completely blue labeled, and they don't notice it at all. I got the same grade as when I broke it out. Nothing. I just put a thing and let it expose. I don't think they noticed it. I don't know for a fact, but I don't think they noticed it like at all. Like there, and if you, I was actually at Mile High earlier this year, and I pulled out a bunch of similar. They had like a lot of a certain number of, like, I think it was when they first thought that they were going to discover who the Hobgoblin was, but it was false. So like a lot of people like had this one graded for some reason. They had a whole deep stack, and I took a video with my phone and showed the difference in brightness of the colors in these books was extraordinary. And I do have another video that shows just the differences, and they all get the same grade. They don't like the vividness of the color As long as I think, and I even taxed it by saying it's not even uniform vividness. It's just got nothing. It's not on their checklist of stuff to like.
Interesting. Okay.
Crazy.
Well,
Yeah.
that makes me feel a little bit better about taking a risk on whitening, because these books definitely have a yellowing, browning, discoloration to the white, and I would like to get that straightened out. And I'm tempted to go through the interior.
Familiar to you? Can you recognize this at all? This is Giant Size X-Men #1. It's my mask. I've got the paper removed for everything that's white, right? And it's covered for everything that you want to not be exposed to light. So
did you laser cut that, or did you cut that out?
I laser cut this out. Yeah, I made several. I have a lot. It takes me a long, because I manually draw all of this. So, and then I laser cut it out, and then I peel this off. And so what I do is I have another mask that's all plastic, but with holes where the white goes. I put that on the book, and I spray peroxide. It lets me only put peroxide on the white. And then I lay this over the book, and then I put the light on it, and it lets me expose only the white areas to light. And so since this book is so popular, I made a bunch of these masks, because I must have done 50 of these Giant Size X-Men #1s. And it allows me to whiten the book so it looks really, really good, because that book gets super dirty, without affecting the colors at all. There's zero effect. So it's great. It's a great tool for that. It's really nice.
Interesting. Now, speaking of, this is going to sound ridiculous, but I've looked in several places locally, and I'm only finding 3% hydrogen peroxide. So all over the internet, 6%. But I wanted to ask you, it'll say like CVS or Walgreens or King Soopers or whatever will sell 6%, but most of it is they're online and you order it and then you pick it up there, as opposed to them stocking it. I don't know why. I think it's like 26 or 28% grade peroxide that we use in the cold plunges at my studio, my gym. Instead of chlorine, we use that to keep the water sanitized. Can I cut that?
Yeah, absolutely. You can
just break it down equally, in equal parts. Just cut it in half, so on and so forth until I get to my range.
Yeah, the equation is just volume times concentration equals volume times concentration 2, right? So like if you have if you say you want a liter of 6%, so that's 6 times 1, right? And then you have let's say 28%, then you just take 6 times 1 divided by 28, and that's how many liters of the original one you'd have to take.
Okay.
Yeah, and James here is saying, James, thank you. He's saying he has a Salon Selectives 40. I have a link to it from the Amazon on my website, so it's the same. So there's two. There's a clear one, and he says Salon Stuff clear, and there's also a cream one that's white. The cream one doesn't flow out as much, and you might need it if you're doing like foxing and you don't want it to spread out. I recommend the cream or the white one, because you can just put a little Q-tip and just drop it and it won't spread out. And then you can just sort of wipe that off, or like put a pad and like take it off there. It doesn't spread. And then you can expose the light, and it really does a good job. Now the clear stuff will spread. And there's a blue and a red bottle, both called Salon Selective 40. Those are 12%. As I test them, they're anywhere from 10 to 13%. So if I titrate it when I get it, open it up, they're all over the place, but they say it's 12%. So if you cut that 50-50, you'd end up with 6%.
Okay. That's what I was. Okay. Interesting. All right, cool. Well, that's been my sort of the one hang up. And then I want to make sure I get something that does a really fine mist, but like you said, also to just give it a slight swipe. Rather, my hands are below here, I'm doing this, a slight swipe with a sponge, or not a sponge, but a light cloth or even cotton swabs, and just to get it to smooth out so that it's not going to bead.
Yes, absolutely. So I actually use another product. It's Jack may know these things here. I use these. It's called Kim Wipes by Kimtech. These are like laboratory wipes. The reason I use these, they're great lens wipes as well, as they're lint free. They don't leave any residue behind, and they're also tougher. They don't get much weaker when they're wet. So when they're wet, they're still pretty strong. They're called Kim Wipes by Kimberly Clark.
Okay.
They're laboratory, like basically laboratory Kleenexes.
Okay.
But they are great because you can take just the weight of one of those, and the weight, it gets a little heavy when it gets some proxy, and you can just drag it across a book.
Okay.
And it will even out without leaving any residue behind. Because I think, I don't know this, but lately I've been getting a lot of feedback from people who are sending their books in and getting them graded, and they're either getting the blue label from CGC with the gray bar, or just getting the purple label entirely. Sometimes some people never get a conservative grade. It's always blue. Some people always get purple. And if you are 50-50, and I don't get the difference. I have myself not submitted one that got a colored label so far. So I'm at a loss to understand what the difference is, but I've asked some questions about, like, what are your methods? Can you send me a video? Because maybe it's something we're not communicating what you do. And what I think I've noticed, and it may be just my imagination, what I think I've noticed is that the people who are getting consistent purple labels are spraying and misting it and not doing anything to even that out. So I'm wondering if they're not seeing little drops or spots, and are and saying, oh, this must have had some kind of a peroxide sprayed on it.
Okay.
Alternately, I think also that the people who really go for it and like make it bone white, now it's easy to, because the colors play with your head. You almost need like a photocopy of what it looked like when you started side by side, because once you start making it whiter, I think it's like people go white crazy. They start looking at it and start saying, oh man, it's got to be whiter and whiter and whiter. It's not quite as white as a Kleenex yet. Like, just let it, just a little wider is enough. Just let it, just barely make it wider. It doesn't have to be super white. Just not dingy yellow is what you're looking for. I think if you're unsatisfied with how white it is, but you still notice that it's whiter, then you're in the good spot. James says here, I'm all blue, have not had a problem. Rick Morgan products are amazing. Thank you. That's really kind of you. But that's it. That's exactly what I'm saying, is some people are completely blue and some people are all purple. The two things I've noticed is, one is spraying peroxide and not evening it out, not using a mister and making it very even. And the other one is just going full blast, balls out, leaving it on all the time, because they just get addicted to white and they're just going with it.
So can you do the interior the same way? You'll spray the interiors as well?
I would be careful with the interior, because the interior of the paper is a lot thinner and it gets brittle a lot easier.
Just let that have light and not necessarily peroxide.
I would, just this light, and also it's very difficult if you don't disassemble the book to make the interior pages even. The parts closest to the spine are usually not as brightened as the parts towards the edges.
I bought all the staple tools a while back. I just haven't gone and dug up, dollar books and played with it yet, but I'm going to, because I want to disassemble some of these and see what I can do to the interior pages.
Let's see what Maurice here said. I actually invited Maurice to talk to us earlier, but he says he's in Toronto and it's like super late, so he didn't really want to log on. But he's had some comments here. He reads, I don't know if you guys can see the comments on your screen, but he reads, one theory for the purple labels, cover cleaned, is too much difference between the interior covers being too white compared to covers to the, and I get that. I've seen that when I do it. I'm like, yeah, that's a lot whiter. And that, that can be pretty stark, a really stark difference that you see that. And I think that what I've started doing a little bit, when I now have that spine protector, like that little teepee tent that I use to keep the book from resting too flat. When I'm in there, what I'll do is, because I have mirrors all around the sides of my box and I keep the light really close to the book for the evenness of the intensity, I actually take some chopsticks I got from Panda Express. I just break those apart and I lift the edges of the cover up when I am cleaning it. And what it does is it lets some of the light get under to the first page of the book. So there's less of a stark contrast on those edges. So it's slightly photo bleaching the first and last wrap.
Okay.
Yeah. And I just used those chopsticks. I just grabbed a handful from Panda Express and I just put them under there. And it seems to do okay, because they'll whiten on their own, not nearly as dramatically. But you'll see it lessens the bold difference from the cover to the first wrap.
I think that light box is such a genius invention.
Oh, sorry. I gotta apologize. Maurice was in Toronto. He's in Montreal. I'm getting the francophone and the English-speaking Canadians backwards, which is probably punishable by death in some provinces. I think I did that job. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. And someone says Tick Tack boards are awesome. Yeah, those are those little boards I use, to around the staple, to do the tack staple removing. Those things are ridiculously popular. I almost hope people stop wanting to order them because they're so difficult to make. For me, I don't like making them at all. It takes like 3 days to make a batch, so I don't like doing it. I have to cut them out with a laser, then I have to wipe them off because they get dirty. Then I have to press them flat, and then I have to soak the ends in salt water, and then I have to form it in a diamond wheel and get the edges on it, and then I have to clean them again. And it takes me days. And I'm like, and then someone will come in there and order, I want 40. I'm like, oh God.
That's a lot of work.
Yeah, that's gotta be a way to automate that though. I mean,
yeah, I tried so many times. I started building special tools, and I tried teaching my kids and other people to do it for me so I could just pay them. So I'm not sitting there with like one eye closed, tired, like making another one and another, but they just can't. There's like so much weird muscle memory in doing that, and also in making those chamfer boards. Like the angle has got to be like my forearms and my wrists know exactly the angle that a comic book spine needs to be after the cardstock has been laser cut and soaked with salt water for this many hours. Like there's a spot in my muscle that like hurts and stops me from going too far. But I've had other people try to do it, and they'll literally ruin like 100 of these things trying to make one work right. It's just I figured it out, and I can't mechanize it for some
I'm determined to figure out a way to do one. Although I'm determined to do one in metal and send it to you. But I think that the fact that it's a little bit of give to that paper is relevant. It's too hard. Metal's going to be too hard of a surface. So I don't know. I'm still,
most of the time it actually works. I have a billet of aluminum that I've rounded, because you can actually get like a machine tool that cuts a pretty close to filleting that edge. That's pretty smooth, and it's like polished. It's like mirror bright, and a lot of times it works okay. Occasionally you'll get a spine where you press on it and it just rips like right along the metal, because if it's aluminum versus paper, aluminum always wins, right? Yeah. In that fight. But if it's paper versus paper, there's a little bit of play and it kind of gives in. So that's why that's working. Yeah.
Have you ever considered like balsa wood?
I actually have considered balsa wood. It doesn't take the heat really well if you're heat pressing. Okay. Balsa wood warps like a mofo when you bring it. I don't know what it is about balsa that causes it, because I like it because it's super easy to laser cut. Right? It's like a second and the stuff's basically on fire. It just vaporizes. I'm like, oh, well, this is great. I bought some sheets at Hobby Lobby, actually. And I was actually, the first thing I made from it was, I'll show you real quick what I made from wood. I'll be right back.
So Jack, real quick, when were you in Germany? What years?
I was there between 84 and 87.
Okay.
Yep.
I made my kid's hamster a mansion.
It's pretty good, right?
So I put her name on the side here. Yeah. And so that was the fun balsa wood experiment. But if you heat it and press it, when you pop it out, it looks like a potato chip. It doesn't.
Hamsters are living the life. That's great.
Spring hamster died a week after I made this. So
rest in peace.
She's currently in a comic book box in our garage, which we're hoping we don't accidentally ship her to one of our customers, because that's going to be what she gets buried in.
Oh no.
She's in there. She's in one of the boxes somewhere. I'm like, oh man, this thing. So we'll see what happens. So Jack, what have you been doing? Have you been cleaning or pressing any books lately?
I'm mostly in the dry cleaning and the MacuClean. So not doing any peroxide cleaning or BLED cleaning or anything like that. So I'm still trying to perfect what I'm doing, which is, wrinkles, spine ticks, all that stuff that are in the books. So I've gone through a decent learning process. I haven't destroyed anything too badly. A lot of practice books. Although I was working on X-Men, so 266, the first cover of Gambit, and had it done, and it was I had it under cold press, and it was there for a couple of days, and as I'm looking through it, it's like, okay, this looks pretty good. So I lift the plate up, and the plate, it slips from my hand, and the corner the lands diagonal across the cover. I mean, clean, just boom, and there's a knife. It didn't go through the cover, but there was just a sharp edge where it landed across, and I just sat there looking at it, going, oh.
Oh God, Jack! Could you recover from it? Is that pressable?
I got a majority of it out, but I could still see it because I knew exactly where it was. Fortunately, I had a better copy, so I still have another one. Actually, I took that one. It was still a good. It was a good shape. But actually, I have a buddy that lives down the street, and we both collect comics, and so he didn't have that one, so I actually gifted it to him. I mean, it was still nice. It was a nice book, but see, I gifted it to him. So that was probably my biggest accident so far with it. Otherwise, I'm just trying to make sure I'm just trying to, because it bothers me when I get some books, because I really haven't sent any. I don't send anything into CGC yet. If I buy a slab, I just buy it. I haven't sent any books off. I'm not. While I do have a fairly decent number of slabs that I've attained, I like the books. I like to grab them when I want it. I like to pop it open and read it when I want to read it. So it's just cleaning them up. If I'm reading a book and it's, the cover's kind of messed up, whatever, I just feel a lot better after I read it. I press it. It just makes me feel better when I'm
it is. It's kind of fun. It's satisfying, right?
Exactly.
I'm actually working on, as you guys probably know, there's been a lot of crazy stuff about grading companies and slabbing in general, which is how this is going to land and shit. I have no idea, but I think people are going to be reluctant to send books in to get graded and to buy slab books for a while until everything settles. And so I started making, like today, I went and bought some sheets of actually I had ordered them a while ago. I picked them up today, some sheets of this museum acrylic that is low glare and it's UV protective. I'm going to start making some of my own slabs. I want to model them after this slab that I bought like in the 90s. This thing was called the Fortress. And I had like one of my older Spider-Man books in it. And I want to make something like this. This has like this clear plastic or paper around the outside, and it's just pretty and it's protective, but it's not graded. So I think I'm going to start making these myself to put my own books if I want them out, because I've seen too many people have sent me photos of their books from their stores where the sun comes in every day, and then they've got pictures of when it's in there, and a year and a half later, it's all faded out. And I don't want that. And current slabs offer no UV protection at all. So I'm going to try to make my own and see, and obviously if other people want them too, I'll make more and sell them. I don't think they're especially hard to make, is what I'm getting at. I think you could just make slabs. You don't need to go buying them and shipping them off and selling stuff. It seems like a lot of extra, but that's not for me here. I have a couple comments here I'm going to show. We have James. I love buying books people press but don't clean it, and then I have to deal with the problem. Thank God for a MacuClean. We're good. Oh, that's good. That's nice of him. Then we have hello there. I am LP from the published comic book Niobe from Antarctic Press. Oh, cool. Thanks. Hello. Cool. That's cool. Oh, he says my video is very eye-opening. I think he's talking about, I'll just mention it briefly. We're over time, but luckily I was able to push a button and extend the time. So I think no, we're not. We're not over time yet.
Oh, you're good.
Because never mind. I got to fix my stupid Apple Watch. But yeah. One says, could you design a thin UV film for like cars apply on the outside? I did. I actually have one. It's actually called Slab Max UV. I have them for CGC, CBCS, and magazine size boards that I did make and cut, and they do fit exactly in the slabs and protect them from UV. Yeah, exactly. I actually have a video where I made bulletproof cases, and I shot some comic books out in the woods. I took Nolan, my son, and I shot him with my Glock, and they were bulletproof, anti-resistant, and scratch resistant.
Yeah. You're just bored. You're bored. Just bored one day.
Shoot their books though, and you got a bunch of feedback about that.
Well, I had to pull the video because YouTube. I had to edit the video because YouTube didn't like me having a gun in my video.
Oh,
so I had to shoot it off screen, but I had it on slow-mo, and it's just called like investigating case materials or something. So what I did was I took UV light. I did a UV penetration test right? And I did a scratch or a mar. I had a stylus with a weight, and I dragged it and see how noticeable was the scratch on that. And then I heated things up and said, okay, does it get hot? Does the book, if the book under the weight sticks to it and you peel it up, does the book stick to that kind of plastic at all? And then I shot them with 9mm regular ball ammo and then with defensive rounds and said, okay, if you have a crazy household and there happens to be gunfire off in your house occasionally, are your comic books going to be okay? Right? So that video, he says he want to see that video. I do have it. I have a link somewhere. Of course I do. I don't, it's called like, I'm trying to figure out, it's called Investigating Materials in, I'll look on my YouTube page here real quick and see if I can look it up in my own video. I have almost 500 videos now, so it's become almost like cumbersome to try to like find even my own video. So I can't expect others to understand, like them to find videos that they don't even know I made, you know?
Yeah, I haven't seen that one, Rick. So
yeah,
I haven't heard that story before. So
oh, I think I found it here. Can I share my screen? I wonder. Oh yeah, I did find it. I wonder if there's a way for me to share my screen from in here.
Can't you do present?
Yes, probably. Share a screen. Oh, it has to be in Chrome. Okay. They're picky about that, I guess. Okay, let's go back to Chrome. It says you don't have any other things in Google Chrome. Thanks, Google. I try not to use a lot of Google stuff because they're not there. If you're not paying for it, then you are the customer, right? So let me present, share screen. There we go. So I'm going to share this. I don't know if you guys can hear the audio or not. Why am I watching ads on my own video? Let's see here. Let's see. Can you guys see that?
Yep.
Okay. So no I do have YouTube videos. So here's the video. And here I'm designing the experiment, right? So I'm like going through and doing all the statistics. So maybe it may be boring at first because you have to go through all the science and the math. And then I put the UV light and I'm measuring different materials and different plastics to see which ones absorb the most UV light and which ones transmit. And we have a UV light there. And here we are. We've taken all these different brands and we're measuring. The ones that say that they're UV absorbing are like letting tons of UV light through. Like its first two are the CGC and the CBCS boards. They absorb basically no material at all. And then I go through and I tell you which ones I use, the CGC case, Acrylite, Krylon, all these different brands, how much was absorbed. And then we did scratch resistance, different films that you could put on things. And then here we go. I think here we drove out to the woods and then, yeah, here's different case materials. Here we go. Yeah, here's me shooting. I think it's in slow motion. Let's see if I can. I don't advertise that I'm shooting it like at all, and it's a pretty boring video if you're not watching. But here we go. Let's see. Is it there? Yeah.
Well,
see, I'm shooting it.
I can see.
Yeah, we want to see if it absorbs the impact. Is it shattering? Like all these kind of things. Yeah, I'm just shooting this. Here's another. Let's see. Here's another one.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Here we go. This one we might get a nice slow mo because I had the camera on slow motion. There we go. Yeah, see the impact. Yeah, and then I went through and did a scratch and mar test at the end. There's this Daredevil wasn't like I penetrated that book pretty well, and that one shattered. And that's supposed to be bullet resistant too. I actually bought a case that said it was like shatter resistant, but I put about 6-9 millimeters right through it. So, yeah. So anyway, I thought I'd share that with you guys.
Yeah. Is that video posted? Is that somewhere?
Yeah. Yeah. It's called Exploring Slab Materials Part 1. There's like a Part 2 and a Part 3.
Okay.
On there. Yeah. So and that's what I'm going to make. I found the right material I want to use. I want it to be bulletproof, scratch resistant, UV resistant, heat resistant, and non-glare, right? That's what I want it to be for. That's my idea for that. And that's what I wanted to do. Yeah. But again, I have so many damn videos. I think I have 540 now, of which like 490 I've made public. I've taken some of them down, and it's too many. Once you get 500 videos up, no one's going to watch 500 videos. So all this stuff's hidden in there. And people keep asking me, why don't you offer this? Or why don't you make this product? And I said, well, I do. I have in there. Just nobody ever looks for it, right? Nobody knows that this exists. And of course, I can't expect people to just go through a library of my stuff and just watch 50 hours of material. So I might have to go through and cull or maybe repost things over time. I'm not sure what the right approach is, but I repeatedly get asked the same like 25 or 30 questions like every day, like all the time. And the answer is like, I already did it. I already looked at this. I already studied it. Like one thing about this, the CGC case thing is that people keep telling me, and one of the things I get, one guy says here a comment about it. He says, the opening of CGC case is that you made it scary for others. Assume many slabs are now compromised. It might be. I have no idea, but probably are. I found out, and if I found out and it took me like 12 minutes, I'm pretty sure I'm not the first person to do it. I'm just the first person to do it and not use it for personal gain, right?
Well, you did it quick, fast, with rough tools you just made. I mean, if somebody really wanted to sit down and create a fine set of tools to do that project, and then they trial and error 3 or 4, I mean, I can't imagine they wouldn't master that pretty quickly.
I already thought about this a lot. And so 2 years ago, I'll call it 2 years ago. It was the summer of, no, it's 2021. So it was 2 years ago, summer of 2021. I had put some slabs out on a machine outside on the top of it and exposed them to light. And I was trying to do these exposure experiments I was just showing you. I'd like set these things flat out like that, right? Just let the sun hit them in the hot sun and just see what explode. I put different materials on here to see what would help protect these things from fading in the sun. And that was summer 21. And in those books, all 3 of them separated completely in half on their own in the heat. So I just picked them up and the top was just completely separate. It had just separate. The ultrasonic weld came apart just from sitting out there, just baking in the sun. They just came apart.
Did they warp?
I was like, what's that?
Were they warped? Did they warp at all?
No.
So
they just came apart. I thought the same thing. I thought they'd be potato chipped or something, but I think just the heat, just sitting there on that hot piece of metal. And I did put them, it was metal, but there was like a canvas on top of it. So it wasn't like directly on the metal. And I put a sheet of clear, like plexiglass over the top just to protect it from rain and stuff, but let the light come through. So that plexiglass may have kept them flat. It was pretty thick. But what happened was they just came apart. I think one of them had one corner still put together, but the other 3, they just lifted and separated into 2 pieces. And I was like, whoa. I thought immediately, holy crap, you could just, if you had 2, and I thought, well, how could I reseal this? And I could. I already knew. I had a video the other day where I had resealed it with the xylene, the solvent, to put it back together, like the acrylic cement. I already knew that was going to work. I kind of cheated because I had done this 2 years ago. And I had cut a slab and tried different solvents to see what would dissolve it so I could just weld it back together without using a glue that would show up in UV light. It just evaporates. So all it does is dissolve the plastic on both sides and then together again, right? So you can't tell. So what I did was I thought, oh my God, you can just reseal these things and put them back together. You could swap the books, but I didn't say anything about it. It's 2 years because at that time I was instructing people at that time, right? At this point I was saying I would be teaching people how to do it. Now I'm showing how you could do it like a different way that doesn't take 3 months of setting it outside and people come by and steal it. Like what would I do and how would I tell if it's done? It's a different story. Now I don't feel bad about quote unquote instructing people because people are already doing it, right? I kept this under my hat for over 2 years and didn't buy a bunch of Hulk 181s and swap them out and send them in all this stuff, right? Just kept the hush. But I thought to myself, it wasn't like I didn't think about this, right? I thought about, should I show this or not? And my grandpa always told me that sunlight's the best disinfectant. He said that, you should always everything comes out with the truth. Everybody understands what the situation is. That's the best way to get around any situation. I sort of used that as my guiding light. He also told me that Wonder Woman from the show in the 70s had 2 superpowers. One is that she has a magic lasso that makes men tell the truth. And the other one is she has enormous chest that makes them tell lies. He told me. So those are like his bits of wisdom, he would say, right? So he said, but I thought about this and I thought, well, what should I do? Should I share this, or should I keep it a secret? It's not going to take, I suspected strongly it wasn't going to take me long because of this experience I already had and to separate this. Again, I was right. But what advantages do the criminals have? I thought to myself, well, they have 3 advantages. They have, one is that nobody knows they're doing it, right? That's a huge thing that they want to have, is that no one is in the darkness. They profit from darkness. Another one is that no one knows what to look for. They don't even if they knew they're doing it, they don't know what to look for to tell if it's being done. The last advantage they have is, the 2 more advantages. One is the grading company's doing nothing about it. If you ask it, CGC has a lot of hubris. They live in the dark. Like if you ask them, how do you grade this book? What are the differences? Where's my book? What's it doing? You don't get nothing. There's no answer from them, right? So they keep you in the dark. The last advantage is that they have is that a slightly higher grade that you can't tell with your eye is worth a ton more money, right? Like a 9.4 to a 9.6 can be a huge difference in price. But to me, to my eye, it's the same book. I can't tell. Those are the advantages that they have. By exposing this, I think you take away all 4 advantages, right? I think you prompt the grading companies to do something about it. You are probably lessening, I don't know, but if everybody knows, there's less of a difference in graded book prices if their authenticity is in question. If everybody knows what to look for, and lots of brains are starting to take these things apart and putting them back together, then people will start sharing ways to determine if this is true. And last one is you've shed sunlight on them. They can't hide anymore. I think my videos take away all 4 advantages that they have. Not everybody feels the same way. And Jack, you've known me for 30 years. Do you think I'm trying to shill this for cash and try to like get watched on my video?
No, not at all, brother. I think personally, I think you've done a great service to the comic book community. And like I texted you the other night, on the channels that I follow and IG accounts, all of a sudden I was seeing, Immaculate Comics or your video popping up all over. That's when I texted you and said like, wow, Rick, your video's like blowing up on all these other channels. And originally, I think they weren't even crediting you originally. They thought it was someone different, and then finally someone corrected them. But I think, I mean, I agree 100% with what you said. If you don't know what to look for, or you don't know how it can be done, and the fact that CGC maybe doesn't know about it or understand what's happening, I think you've really helped us out. Personally, that's what I think. So
I think it's too soon because you just put those 2 videos out. But I would be really surprised if CGC and CBCS don't reach out to you or don't make some kind of a statement or comment to you or try to talk with you about what you've discovered and see if I know you've got suggestions for them on what they can do. So I would be surprised if they don't reach out. I think they should. But
I think if they don't, it means they already knew about it, right?
That's true.
I think if they don't say something to me, they were just sitting on this. Can you imagine if you're at work, right? And you are and you're sitting around a table and they say, hey man, we've got this product. Only the thing is, the only thing we sell about this product, let's say it's security in this case or a guarantee, is no more anymore. What are you going to do about it? Well, the first thing you're going to do is find someone to blame and fire him, right? At any job. We're going to start pointing fingers at each other. The next thing you're going to do is try to do damage control, I think. In any case, you're going to try to limit it. So you're going to put out a statement and you're going to say, it's only $100 and we're going to give money back. And you're going to try to limit it as much as possible. I think that reaching out to someone like me is like only if you really are fully welcoming change and you really want outside help and you want to admit that you lost control of the situation entirely. But if you need to pretend like it's in control and it's not that big of a deal, then you'll keep everybody in the dark as much as possible. I really do. Someone else just asked me here. He said, do you think someone else will copycats trying to make a quick buck? Yeah, I thought about that. I really thought, well, okay, am I instructing people such that some people will try to now do this and make a quick buck? Yeah, there's going to be somebody who tries to do that. But for every one person that does that, 100 of their buyers, their customers are now looking at it, right? Yeah. You've leveled the playing field. So yeah, you've instructed this one guy. I remember watching a show in the 90s about counterfeiting. It was like a Discovery Channel thing. It was, here's how you counterfeit money. Like you wash the $1 bills and you print this on, they make these plates and they engrave them. I'm like, why are they showing us how to do this? I thought the same thing. Are they showing everybody how to counterfeit? And I looked it up, and the Secret Service, the Department of the Treasury, the U.S. Marshals, the FBI got together and decided what to do about counterfeiting. And they decided the same thing I decided. Is we need to let everybody know how it's being done, what to look for, how to find these guys, so that the point of sale people, right, the average guy, not the CGC guy, but the guy who's buying the book, can look at this and say, aha, this guy's a cheater. He gave me a cheated book. And then advertise to the world, this guy's a snake. He's a cheater. I got this book from him, because now they can spot it. That was the position the FBI and the U.S. Secret Service took on counterfeiting. Let's let the point of sale people help us catch these people. They're all assistant deputy marshals in the whole world. And I think that's the position I'm taking too, is now that if everybody can look for it, everybody can spy it, it's much harder, I think, for the bad actors to be a copycat. It's much easier if I were to see this and say, just here's how you can spot it. And that's the other thing I thought of too. Like, why don't I just say, here's how you spot it, and not how to do it, but you can look for this. Immediately, I think if I showed that the next person to do it would try to like make that thing go away. That whatever I showed, they would try to circumvent that. And it like the first guys who tried to stop you from copying DVDs, Sony spent like $500 million making not copyable DVDs, and some kid took a Sharpie marker and drew a circle in the middle, and they were all copyable now because they had a little barcode you can read on there. So it just destroyed it completely, right? I think that would happen. They would just find a way to work around it. But now, let's say it's not just me who knows how to do it and gave you the secret of how to tell. Let's say there's 100 million people in the country that are all looking for different little things that I didn't see about how to tell, and keeping us all updated on the latest ways that's going on. Now it's a lot harder for someone to get away with something like that. It makes it trickier. I think that shining daylight on everybody's understanding what happened and how to get around it. We all have everybody's brains on it is the best way around it. Now, I had full opportunity for years now to swap books out in cases and try to sell them and make money off of it. It's just not my style. It's not my way. I am not making these videos to try to get eyeballs on my products and try to make money. I mean, I'm literally made $30 last month on YouTube. Like,
is anyone accusing you of that?
Oh gosh, yes, they do. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, they think I'm a shill, but they don't know me. I think people see me for the first time and they think, oh, this guy's trying to sell, because so many people are. Jack may remember a story from years ago when I worked at Aerojet. I was into golfing, and someone asked me what the best golf ball in the world was. And I went through and I cut all these golf balls in half. And I had access to a wind tunnel and a machine that we built a robot arm to hit the golf balls. And we put a piece of reflective tape, and we built a computer that could count the RPMs. And because I worked at a rocket place where we could knock the balls out and measure how far they went and stuff. And I went through, and I happened to be, and the rocket place is across the street from the golf course in Redmond, Washington. So I go out every day and walk around and pick up all the golf balls I could get, cut them in half, measure them with the infrared, balance the balls, measure their coefficient of elasticity, the compressive ratio, all this stuff. And then I posted this on some golf website one time. And the people there immediately thought that I was like a shill for another company, because what I'd posted was for Titleist. I said, their second most expensive ball, not the Pro V1, but just the one under that, was like $50 a dozen, is no different from their $20 a dozen ball. Mm-hmm. They are identical. They just have a different sticker on it. And I said, here's all the measurements. Here's their weight, their balance. There's no statistic. There's no information at all that says it's any different.
Titleist was happy with you.
They were pissed. And so they sent me a cease and desist order. Everybody on there was like, okay, what's the ad now? What are you saying? Like, everybody was convinced that I was working for Callaway or something else, right? They all thought I was working for another club. I said, no, I'm just a guy. They said, well, who the hell has a wind tunnel and a high-speed camera and all these machines and stuff? I said, I just happen to have all that stuff. And I happen to have a lot of golf balls. And so I just did this study and found out that these balls are no different. They're just literally charging you 2.5 times as much for the same golf balls. And they got packets from the lawyer and all. It was crazy. Yeah, it was nuts. I think I have pictures of them on my. It was nutty what the stuff I went through. It was crazy. And I was like, dude, no, I'm just a guy. And they said, no. They said, even Callaway called me and said, even we don't have all that stuff. How can we do this? So,
you're not just a guy, Rick. You're not just a normal guy.
Clearly not. In disguise, maybe, but that's about it.
Let me show
Although when we're done with this, I'm going to go to the wind tunnel and do some work like that.
Exactly. Well, yeah, I happen to have one, right? And so that was the thing that we did. It's so silly to think about it now, right? It just, it was pretty cool. We had a little strip of tape. We put reflective tape on there. We had a high-speed camera. We'd hit it with a robotic arm, and it would count the RPMs because it would count how many times that piece of tape came up and the arc of the ball, right? So we would have like short performance, putting performance, driving performance, and then we would do it at 3 different speeds at like 90, 80, and 70 mile per hour swings. And I just made this huge graph in the jump software and modified it. And I actually found out that the Callaway Hot X ball, which is only like $25 a dozen, is the best ball. Like it's the cheap, the more expensive balls are only better if your swing's over like 100 miles an hour, and it's only for that first shot, not for the putting and chipping. So I've never paid more than $30 a dozen for a golf ball after that, because I know it's just a scam. The whole thing's just, they're lying to you.
That's awesome. That's a great story.
Yeah. I got in trouble.
I want you to fit one more in. I want to know what happened in South Africa.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
so I was in South Africa.
Before your time runs out here,
I went to I was in Cape Town for I work as a consultant for the CDC in Atlanta, and I was there with one of the department chiefs for my viral load testing paper. I was presenting a paper there. And it's a long flight. I had to fly from here to Copenhagen and then down to Cape Town. And that's like the second flight's like 16 and a half hours, like straight down. It was dirty and gross. And they lost my bag. I got there like 1 a.m. and it's summer there. So it's hot and sticky in 2 days. And my clothes are gross. And I decided I'm going to go to McDonald's instead of eating weird chicken livers and stuff for dinner in my hotel. I'm going to walk to the McDonald's. And I go to walk to this McDonald's, and there's a policeman. The policemen there are like 5'4" and they're skinny. They weigh like 90 pounds. And he's got this vest on. He's like, "Oh, you can't go here. They have a load shedding. So there's regular power outages. They lose power all the time." They said, "You have to go down here and go around." And I'm like, okay, that's weird. But McDonald's is like right there. And he said, there's a riot. I go, "There's no riot. I'm looking at McDonald's. I'll just go there." He said, no, you have to go around. I said, okay. So I went down this street, and there's another street, and a guy with buttoned up shirts, black. I don't want to say black. They're all black. The whole country's black guys, right? But this guy is like, looks like a regular person that lives there. So he's trustworthy. He doesn't look like a lost rube like me, right? So he says, "Oh, you got to go down here and go under this tunnel, and you got to go through the train station out the other side to get there." I go, "Well, that seems weird, but okay." So I went down below, and there's like a homeless camp there. And I should preface this by saying homeless camps in Africa are a whole different ball of wax than a homeless camp here. Well, a homeless guy here can be 40 pounds overweight and have Beats headphones and an Under Armour sweater. And down there, like the ribs are showing out. There's flies on them and stuff. It's just not the same, right? So I'm going down here, and it's already looking pretty sketchy. And there's like dogs panting and trying to get in people's stuff everywhere. And I'm like, well, that's not great. So I go up under this tunnel, and then there's a place where you can buy a ticket to get on the train. They have to open this door, let you into the train station so you can get through. And I didn't want to buy a ticket. And there were these two guys kind of following me, showing me what to do. So, "Oh, you got to buy your ticket." They showed me what to do. They said, "Oh, you got to tap your card to buy a ticket." I said, "I don't want a ticket. I don't want to go anywhere. I just want to get through the train station so I can get a cheeseburger made out of African beef, whatever they found." And so they said, "Okay, just tap your card and buy a ticket to nowhere. Like, well, we'll show you how to do it. And then once you get in, you put your ticket and the doors will open." There's a lot of preface to this because it's trying to set up that I'm not an idiot. I was just leading into this thing. I tap my card, and then this guy, one of the two guys, reaches over like a metal railing to my left and just grabs the card out of my hand and pulls it, and he tries to like run off with it right away. One of the guys that was presumably helping me. But I grabbed his wrist and I twisted his wrist back around because I outweigh this guy by like 40 pounds. I mean, like he couldn't possibly get away from me, right? So I'm just like, "What are you doing?" And I grabbed his wrist, but he was kind of leaning over the metal railing. And then I grabbed him like this. I put my arm around his neck, and I'm holding his arm out, and he started just he completely freaked out, and he hit me in the head with his nose. And then he dropped my credit card, but he gave me a bloody nose, and now I'm bleeding, and he's like completely flipping out. But somebody else ran up, because now all those homeless people I was telling you about stood up, and they're kind of standing around because they're watching this commotion. I think they knew what was going to happen. that because they all kind of followed me in there. So now I've got like 70 people all following me to this thing. It's really weird. And then another guy ran up and just out of this crowd, just grabbed the card and just ran off with it. And I'm holding this guy who's flipping out, and I just dropped him on the steps. And then I ran through the crowd after him. I'm breathing hard. It's like 1 a.m. for me, a sticky, gross clothes. I'm bleeding on my face now. And my credit card's gone that I need to eat with while I'm here. And this guy runs off with it in the crowd. And I start trying to run through the crowd. And it's a super weird, sketchy feeling. And he's just gone, right? So I have an activated word. I tell SIRI on my phone here. And I say it, and she locks all my credit cards. And so I said that word, and all my credit cards were locked. And 3 minutes later, somebody tried to charge $2,400 on my card. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and then it was just nuts. And I'm breathing hard. I'm like, and now I'm getting a little nervous, right? Because now I'm still in this crowd of people. I still don't know where I'm going. I'm lost. My phone has, luckily, a very intermittent reception. Luckily, it was able to cancel my card. So I finally found my way around. That guy was not a policeman. He directed me down there into a trap. I was
going to ask, were these people like they were?
It was a scam. I reported them to the constabulary. He just had a policeman's vest. He was not a cop, because I did talk to the cops later. I got to McDonald's. I had an order to pick up my food, right? I picked up, my face is bloody. I got blood running down my shirt. I have no change of clothes. I picked up my food. I left, and then somebody came and stole my food. I can't do this.
Dude, your stories, the stuff that happens to you, the years,
I know, right?
The decades I've known you is just unbelievable.
Yeah, stuff does happen to me. So it was unpleasant, to say the least, but it wasn't that bad. I said, look, I said the same thing to myself, to my colleagues, right? I said, look, I would rather be beat up and poor and able to leave Cape Town than be one of these poor bastards stuck here in this alley, right? I don't blame them for trying to be opportunists, because they have no hope. Like, they're in the worst possible way in the world.
Yeah. And
I would try to steal money from me too, right? I mean, I didn't want it to happen to me, clearly, but I do have some compassion for the situation and what they're in. I get it. At the end of the day, I don't feel sorry for myself, because I'm still better off than these poor suckers are. It's awful. And my heart goes out to them.
Your outcome was as best as could be too, because you could have gotten
for sure,
disappeared. So
yeah, here I am. The next day, I literally had to wash a shirt kind of like this one in the sink in my hotel room to try to get the blood out. And I had to put a coat on. I was wearing like University of Oregon sweatpants. I put a jacket on over that and zipped it up. I had to go to a conference wearing no shirt with a jacket on when it's 85 degrees out in summer, sweating down the side of my body with sweatpants on that I've been wearing for 5 days. And I had to like go present a poster for a paper on viral load testing for AIDS and Ebola and COVID and stuff. So
this guy.
You have the best story, man. You do.
It's a true story. That really happened to me. It was like just a couple of weeks, like a week and a half ago, really. Yeah, it was some nutty stuff. So anyway, I have to go run off to guys. Do you guys have any last words you want to say? Anything you want to see we talk about next time? Any words to the folks out there in the world?
Not necessarily in that direction, but I will say I will make a concerted effort to do a series of experiments with some books. So maybe you can have, I'm a novice. I mean, I'll do a series of things that you can look at and maybe we can talk about.
That sounds great. How about you, Jack? What do you want to see next time we talk?
No, that's great, Mark. I think I appreciate just the similar content that we talk about. Any tips and tricks on how to make things, our books better, but then also how to just, again, better contribute to the community. That overall is very good. But also appreciating new folks, Mark, it's appreciating being able to meet you like this and through Rick. So that's what I look forward to. So.
Yeah, you too, buddy.
That's right. Right, great guys. It's always nice to see you. I love our Jack and I choices of facial hair, and Mark's getting there on the head. On the top.
I'm working on it. I'll get there soon.
That's right. Work on that, Mark. Come on.
Like you guys. I don't know.
All right, you guys. I'll see you later. Take care.
Take care.
Take care, guys. Peace.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.